What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones is here as we welcome in our good friend, the prop, Professor Shine, courtesy of our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. Don't forget to check them out online, playitagainsports.com. Just put in the New Jersey location. I mentioned to you last week some of the ridiculous sales they got going on right now. I mean, you stop in Play It Again Sports, Defford, slightly used sports equipment, baseball, hockey, football, lacrosse, golf, even weights. They'll give you cash all the way through January. Also, 30% more in-store credit. Make sure you mention to them you heard it right here on BYP. So a little abbreviated spot with our guy today. We'll hit it again tomorrow, but prop, always good to touch base with you, my friend, and let's get into it. You want to start with a couple games last week, last night, and then maybe a couple marquee games this weekend?
Well, we're a few games away from that debacle Monday night with the Eagles.
Yeah.
I did share a play that I made. We talked about it. First half Eagles was a good sized play for me, but I also played Eagles as a side, and that was a little disappointing that the defense didn't make a stop late there. As far as the charity bowls were going, we hit the biggest bowl we had.
Really?
With UTSA, but the line had moved from 9.5 to 13. So it was tough if you had 9.5 or 10, it was a relatively, large play, almost about double than normal. But it went up to 13, so it became like a half a play. Still a winner. I have a play in tonight's game, and that's another line that went up. It was 4 with a money line of minus 180 last week, and it's all the way up to 6. A lot of these games, Rich, are moving the day of, either because of big service releases or opt-outs that are being made the day of. Now, the transfer protocols, they're allowing the players to still play. And some of the coaches are saying, it's a game time decision, almost as if they're giving them the leeway. I just had visions of one of the linebackers sitting around going, what are you doing tomorrow? Or what are you doing in about 2 hours? I don't know. Let's drive down and play in the game. Like what? Yeah. Well,
It's a
where are we at?
mess.
I don't know. Where's the game at? Orlando. All right, let's go there. Like, what do you mean it's a game time decision? Like, kind of owe it to your teammates to either say you're going to play or you're not going to play. If you're the quarterback or if you're running back, the backup guy wants to play. But as far as how it relates to what we speak about, as far as the lines, and there are some things that are changing. On tomorrow, I get a full slate of college football, starting out with Duke and Troy, and that game started out. Duke has some early opt-outs, but overall, even a full strength, Troy is a good team.
Sure.
So this gives you an example. This game opened up right around 6.5. Then it was bet to 7, and then there was 7.5, 8s out there for a long time, and now it's getting bet back to 7. I still like Troy in the game, so I have a play in the Duke Troy game, and then I have another 2 plays again. It's a full slate starting at noon, ending at 10:30. So people are complaining about the bowl season, but for bettors, there's a lot out there. Yeah, there's a lot. Of course, these games don't mean anything, but they do a little bit to teams like Kentucky, who want to beat Clemson. That's coming down to. Of course, you can pick your own out. Teams like Tulane want to win. Now there's USC Louisville. Is that a big deal? I think Louisville wants to win that game. It's too hard to quantify motivation. I think. A lot of these guys, they want to win their bowl. They want to win the bowl game. It's good for boosters. It's good for money. It's good for, you have a game like Texas A&M, Oklahoma State. Both teams want to win. A&M doesn't have a coach. They got rid of their coach, obviously, with Jimbo over there. And, but, it isn't like Oklahoma State doesn't want to win. So, I bring it up just for the context of the lines for people that might be listening. Say, who can I bet tomorrow? And then, of course, tomorrow you got the whole slate. You got the interesting slate. the beginning slate, I call it, of NFL. So you have the 4:30 game, and then you have the night game,
Yeah. Bills,
which
Chargers cap it off, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh with, we don't know what the hell's going on quarterback wise. I mean, they benched Trubisky. They'll go to Rudolph. You mentioned the Steelers a couple weeks ago. That's a sinking ship right now. You called them frauds. They're 7-7. I think Cincinnati's laying 3 on the road in this one.
well, there was me and other people who kind of do this, who look at things other besides win and loss. Like Bill Parcells said, you are at the end of the day what your record is, but maybe not in the middle of the season. Middle of the season, you might not. There's a lot of variance. You look at what happened. They beat the Rams.
Yep.
The ref made a bad call at a bad play. They caught Cincinnati in a transition, and they played well defensively. The Steelers beat them. What I was waiting for is when you have a team through 8 or 9 games, really historically, if you go back 35, 40 years, you can compare like things. But teams that start out that way, that have those kinds of poor numbers, they can still win games. We saw it last year at Minnesota. They won all those close games.
Close games.
And really what you're waiting for is for a team like that to really be laying an overlay. It usually ends up with them at home, and that's what we ended up getting with the Steelers against Arizona. People are like, oh, how did you see Arizona? I said, well, Arizona is actually attempting to play to win. They played some decently competitive games up until the fourth quarter. And overall, the Steelers shouldn't be laying 6 to anybody.
Right.
And that's how now it dresses up this week. Strangely, is I kind of like them as a dog here. I don't like them. I think it's a lot of recency bias, but there's also smart people in the market. They're looking to say, okay, well, then we really know what Pittsburgh is. They kind of play back to their record, and they should be dogs against Cincinnati. Cincinnati can score. I'm not so sure that since this game shouldn't be a pick-em. So I see a slight opportunity. I think if you want to play a small dog in the Steelers, I think it's a good teaser leg as well. I think the game will be like the game in Cincinnati. I think it'll be close. It'll be 16-10, 13-12, something like that. We've seen a lot of good stuff out of the Bengals. The kid from Washington, he can
playing well.
But I do think it's tough. We saw what Green Bay did on the road when I warned everybody, you have to be an extraordinarily decent team.
Yep.
In that upper echelon to play everybody. That's as long as whoever you're playing isn't absolute crap, and your team, the Big Blue, is not crap.
Right.
The Carolina is the worst team we see right now because they don't score. They don't really do anything right.
You called it back-to-back weeks. You had Giants winning outright against Green Bay. They did. And then you said it ends Tommy Cutlets against the Saints, and it did.
Yeah, I think scheduling has a lot to do with it. I think that Saints line opened 4.5. It was 5. You see people in the market that were hitting it as best they could because the line opens up early. The limits aren't that great, so books won't move the line that they won't adjust that much. But they made a solid move to 6. Some people actually took the 6 with the Giants. I ended up having 6 and 5.5 and 5. So I gave the Saints out. And then the other game, people were sleeping on. It seems like it happened a month ago. There's so much has happened this last week as holidays and whatnot, I know. But, the Lions come in Saturday night, and they absolutely just plastered the Broncos. And that's not really it becomes the scheduling. It's a tough run for the Broncos. This whole season is a marathon. It's tough to now have to go all the way to Detroit, who is sitting on needing a win. And it's a weird narrative to say because I don't really use that much. But Detroit knows they haven't played a full game. They played well in the first half at Chicago. They had a couple really bad plays go against them. Then they made a couple bad plays. So all these games that they've that been close or that they've lost, they looked horrible against Green Bay. They actually looked horrible the week before Thanksgiving against the Bears, but they played well in the fourth quarter to come back. It just looked like the lines are too good, in my opinion, for what I've seen, for them not to win a game. So I had the Lions really big in the first half.
Good.
And I like the Lions for the game as well, too. But that's ancient history for this coming up. I'm sure everybody thought that this Bills Charger game was going to be a good game like a month ago. But believe it or not, I don't think that the Chargers getting 13 is a bad play.
Really?
I just don't. I think it's a lot of points for a team to lay, and for a team that's not. I know they got to back up. They looked absolutely. Could you look any worse on
No.
national TV?
No. And the coach had to go after that. He had to go.
And what did I say? I said what would happen. They will fire the GM and the coach. And nobody in the national media really tied that together, and I don't know why. But it's the reason it's important is because when I texted you last year after they blew the lead, literally after they blew the lead, I said he's not getting fired. And, everybody was like, "Oh, of course." So he's not getting fired for the simple reason they were going to have to fire the GM also, and the Spanish did not want to eat two contracts.
Right.
Where the guys had years left. And I still think Staley has a year left. I think he's getting paid $4 million. I even think Tom Telesco, the GM, had a buyout clause as well. But it's pennies on the dollar if they get hired somewhere else. Staley's going to end up being, I don't know, coordinator or something. He'll get a cup of coffee somewhere. But listen, Hackett got a job.
That's right.
I know it's because of Rodgers, but you couldn't do a worse job than Hackett. And I know Rodgers had a lot to do, but a lot of these guys get jobs no matter how bad they are. Some guys are just they're not set up to be head coaches. No. But how can you blame Staley to turn down $16 million for 4 years? If they offer that to me now, I'm taking the job. I'm not. And after watching Hard Knocks with the coach there, I don't think I'd do a bad job, to tell you the truth. It's who you surround yourself with. But look. We'll go back to your team. Parcells. Who did Parcells surround himself with? He had a lot of good. He had decent.
Belichick. Yep.
All the way back to Walsh.
Brunell. Yep.
That tree is great. Of course, Belichick's tree has really not done well.
No.
Not sure why. Maybe because these guys he's so specific and that grouping doing their own job, that he doesn't let them in with everything else. Who knows? Who cares? The story that came out, we've been speculating all years that Belichick is done. We brought it up last week, and then they're going to play a game in Denver, which is the line is now 7.
Yep. And
traditionally, I don't like dogs who can't score.
And that's the Patriots because of their offense.
Years ago, it was if you had a defense, in the 90s, when passing wasn't as prevalent, 90s, I'd say up until like 2000, maybe 6. If you had a good defense and teams were giving you 7 or more, and they weren't like, pick the teams that can score. Miami scores, the Ravens score. The Eagles score.
Dallas, Buffalo, San Fran.
You could do home and road splits and all, but overall, these teams score. So you want to be in the upper echelon of teams that can score, however they do it. If you have a good defense.
Right.
Denver's not a big scoring team, so it's weird. It's a weird game. Should they be laying 7 against anybody?
I don't think so. No.
It's just so it's a very odd game because I do think the Patriots will keep it close. That doesn't mean they can't lose 27-17 or something. They looked, I don't want to say they looked bad against the Lions so much as it just was one of those things, almost like what the Lions ran into against the Ravens. Second game on the road, you get down early, you kind of just, I don't say take the pedal off, but you do everything vanilla after they play cover 2. You still play your offense, but you're down 3-4 touchdowns. I mean, what can you do? Nothing's going to work when you're
Give
down that much.
me, give me,
I do kind of like New England.
okay.
I will say the marquee game we can
Yeah.
touch on again. The Dolphins started out really for like a hint, 2.5. And then it went to 1.5. It stayed 1.5 for probably 2 full days, maybe 3 full days. And now it's been slowly hit where it's a pick 'em. Bigger places, the Dolphins are still one. I like the Dallas in the game. I like Dallas on a teaser leg. I like Dallas to win the game.
Okay.
Uh, Two really evenly matched teams. But I
Dallas, a
do
different team on the road, as we know.
they do, but it's again, I think defense can travel a little bit. If it was a tough matchup, this whole stretch is a little tough for them. These two back-to-back games on the road,
Yeah.
late in the year, you hope one of them is named Carolina, or one of them is like
Get
there's
that
no
soft
gimmies,
game.
but you want to have something that's like to have Buffalo Miami back to back, they're going to split, or you just knew they weren't going to sweep. But that I just had the feeling they were going to get one of them, and I didn't think they were going to get the Buffalo one. So I actually had Buffalo as a small play as well. So I like Dallas. The game that's tough for me is the Lions at the Vikings, because the Vikings, everybody talked about the quarterback who now it's laughing when I said don't get
Comeback player of the
overdone
year.
with the
Yep.
quarterback because you guys get hurt. He got hurt, but their defense has been playing really really well. The Vikings. Um, I do think the Lions will win the game. They had to play the Vikings again
Right.
in the
At
end of the
home.
year.
Yep.
And now it's looking like I've said it all year about the New Year's Eve game in Dallas being an important game. Might not be that important
Right.
because if Dallas beats Miami and Detroit does not beat the Vikings, the seeds are basically going to be locked up.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit will be the 3 seed. Dallas will still be live to win the East, but the Eagles have Giants, Arizona,
That's right.
Giants.
And Giants again.
So they're going to be. What did I say? They opened at 13.5 and went to 10.5. It's 13.5. Next
Yep.
week's 10 or 11. It might
Yep.
be 12.
Look ahead
In New
line.
York, in New York is going to be the closest game to look at because there'll be a 7 point. They'll be right around 7, maybe 8 in New York. That's not it's not a gimme. This game's the gimme. I just don't see them losing
Agree.
this game. And I have a first half play on the Eagles as well. It was 6.5 juiced. It's 7 now, but I like Eagles in the first half. I don't think you're not tied to you don't have to play the spread.
No, it's a get
I
right
mean,
game. It's a get right game regardless.
I think they'll come out strong.
Yep.
And if they play poorly, I don't think it'll be in the beginning.
Yeah.
Uh, that's just how I see that. And then you have a lot of crap, but then you have the KC Raider game was just interesting because KC's so live to be the 1 seed. After all that, Mahomes screaming and yelling and Reed screaming and
The
yelling.
Tony drops. Yep.
How come we didn't get the warning? And I kind of stayed out of that. I have an opinion on everything. I really don't have an opinion on that. I just was kind of like, they're just blowing off steam a little bit because they've had a couple tough losses. But as soon as they got calm and looked at their schedule and looked what everybody else does, everybody else is going to be bashing their heads in.
Sure.
They had at New England, home against the Raiders. I think they have at the Chargers is one of the games. I mean, they're set in a good spot where they can be the top seed. Now, I don't think the top seeds are great because it's the only one that's going to get a bye.
Right.
It's a week of rest. You always want that. But overall, I don't see both top seeds getting to the Super Bowl. If it's San Fran and it's KC, I don't think it's going to be KC San Fran. I mean, as we get into the playoffs, it's just not going to run. There's just too many teams in here. If the Rams get into this, I mean, the Rams can beat anybody.
Yeah.
The Rams might end up being a 6 seed. They might end up
making a
playing
run.
in Detroit. They can win in Detroit. It's going to be more closely matched games than we think.
So I know we're really, really tight. I want to get into these games tomorrow. Again, second portion, but I know I got about a minute or two real tight time, but I just want to get your thoughts real quick with that Ravens and 49ers game, just early thoughts on that. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but if you can give me an idea, a minute or two.
I mean, I think the Ravens should cover the game. They're a good team. San Fran's a good team. It's more, you're getting a solid amount. My only problem with that is that the Ravens, they don't necessarily need this game, but the players don't approach it the way we look at it.
They don't.
They approach it. They go there to win the game. They don't. I think a lot of these guys don't even look at the score until they get the feeling like, oh my God, are we getting killed? And then somebody happens to look on the scoreboard and they're down 17-3 or whatever. But I think it should be a close game. The Ravens have a good team. The Ravens haven't the worst game the Ravens have played, I think, was last week, and they won the game.
They still won the game.
The game against Pittsburgh that they lost was just bizarre. It's just a bizarre loss. They had first and goal in the 3, and they end up losing the game, not even cover. So, could they lose this game 27-10? I just think with the way Lamar Jackson is, the way the Ravens are set up, they're built to play close games. They play a good defense. They run a lot. I know it's a little cheesy because Lamar runs a lot. But if I had to pick right now, it would be the Ravens plus 5.5.
Okay.
Now, it will be interesting if San Fran loses the game. Wow, because now you have, they got to play the Rams to end the season.
That's right. Congested in the top seed too. Yep.
It'll mean that they can't sit anybody in that game.
Nope. Great point.
They have all the tiebreakers against Eagles.
Yep, and Dallas.
Detroit would have to win in Dallas. So this next 3 weeks are going to be actually pretty good. And I hate to admit it, the playoffs with the added team makes a lot of
give it a little juice.
Makes a lot of things live. And you like to see a team like the Rams get into the playoffs because they're good. They were playing a little bit like and then they've caught fire. And like the Bengals did last year. I think the Bengals finished the year 8 straight or 7 straight wins or something. And then the Bengals went to Buffalo and beat Buffalo.
Yep.
You're seeing a little bit of that with the Rams.
So tomorrow we're going to get in these games a little more, just kind of want to encapsulate what transpired over last week. And I know you're going to post some of your bowl plays as well on X at Professor Shine. And as always, our editions of BYP with the prop from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. We'll actually get caught up on the charity tout tomorrow as well, see where that stands. But stop in right now, slightly used sports equipment, baseball, hockey, football, lacrosse, golf, even free weights. I got to get in there to get some weights as well. They'll give you cash through January, 30% more in store credit. Make sure you mention that you heard it right here. BYP with Q. Prop, I know we're a little tight. We'll do a little more time tomorrow. We'll kind of look at some of these games. We'll maybe even dive into a little NBA as well, early MVP odds as well, but always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
No problem. I'll talk to you tomorrow.